This is Valley View News.
The American Muslim community continues to build understanding between Muslims and other Americans a decade later. CSUN has unveiled a statue of the Matador mascot, finding money for it in spite of rising tuition and other costs.
This is a bill that will put
President
people back to
Obama
work
proposes a
all across the country.
$447 million job act that he says will help millions of Americans who are out of work.
Hello and welcome to Valley View News. I'm Sarah Pila.
And I'm Darren Johnson.
A Taliban bombing in Afghanistan has injured 77 U.S. troops and killed 5 civilians. The bombing occurred outside of an American military base. A policeman and an 8-year-old girl were among those killed. The troops did not suffer life-threatening injuries. The blast did damage several government buildings, including a medical center. The bombing occurred the day before the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks.
Many Americans were traumatized by the September 11th terrorist attacks, even though they were nowhere near where the tragic violence took place. Here's Justine Burrows with more in the newsroom.
Healthcare workers say that it is taking many Americans years to heal from the attack. One of these people I know well because she is my sister.
I remember that day when I woke up and I seen the first building being hit by the plane. I immediately started shaking, started crying. I was just devastated.
Images like this, and this brought a sense of fear, depression, and lack of security to many Americans. Former New Yorker Vivian Stokes recalls the worried state everyone was in after the second plane hit.
And people were really nervous, and they were all trying to make arrangements to get their kids picked up, and you know, it was really, really very panicky because nobody knew what that meant.
Director of Cal State Northridge's Counseling Services, Mark Stevens, says the 9/11 terrorist attacks showed the vulnerability of America.
We don't think about being attacked. We think that we're secure, that people aren't going to go after us, and that was shattered on 9/11.
According to the American Psychological Association, about 20% of Americans face some form of trauma during the 9/11 terror attacks. Stevens describes how traumatized Americans are healing after witnessing the terrorist attacks of 10 years ago.
And it's like a wound that is opened up. But over time, things start to heal.
According to a study in the Journal of American Medical Association, Americans that watched 12 hours or more of media coverage during the September 11 attacks experienced more symptoms of trauma. However, those that watched less coverage experienced fewer symptoms of trauma. Although yearly the media reminds those like Gardena native Angelique Burrows of the tragic events, she chooses to see the good in the day.
I get depressed. However, I think about how courageous our country, the people in our country, are.
Experts say that Americans have shown resilience and will continue to heal as the years progress. In the newsroom, I'm Justine Burrows. Back to you in the studio.
As we look back at the decade that has passed since 9/11, we also take time to look at how the tragedy changed what it means to be both American and Muslim.
American Muslims have experienced firsthand how much the U.S. has changed in the 10 years since 9/11. That day changed not only how non-Muslims view the religion, but how Muslims viewed themselves.
Well, before 9/11, me being a Muslim, I didn't feel like it was a problem or like it was an issue. After, it did.
The decades since 9/11 has seen its share of hate crimes aimed at Muslims. Even Muslim children were subjected to teasing and bullying.
I even remember in 4th grade, a girl came up to me and she asked me right after September 11th, and she said, "Oh, is Osama bin Laden your uncle?" And I straight up, like, even though I believe I was like 9 years old, 8 years old, I straight up told her, I was like, first of all, I'm Afghan, and Osama bin Laden is Arabic. I was like, you can't just generalize all Muslims as one race. So I was like, he's not my uncle. He's just a separate person who made his own decision, and he's an extremist that I have nothing to do with, and I do not support what he did.
Though the amount of Islamophobia prevalent in the U.S. today is under debate, there is nonetheless the question of why this kind of fear continues to exist 10 years later. Some, like college student Malek Al-Mariyati, feel that Muslims' portrayal in mass media is partially responsible.
it portrays Muslims as dangerous people who, I mean, it says that Islam is a terrorist, violent religion, when in reality Islam is a peaceful religion. The term Islam comes from the word salam, which is peace.
Many Muslim communities have enacted outreach programs in order to teach non-Muslims what Islam is about. It is hoped that through these outreach programs, the rampant misconceptions about Islam can be combated. Many view education as the only way the U.S. can move past any residual animosity.
I don't know how we're ever going to be a fully functional republic if we're too afraid to ask each other questions and learn about each other and accept each other for who we are.
In addition to outreach, many mosques also open their doors to any who would like to learn about Islam firsthand. For Muslims, education is thought to be the key to understanding.
And I think as we more educate ourselves, the more we educate ourselves, the more we will learn to appreciate each other for who we truly are, and the more we will be able to forget the stereotype and place the blame on the particular people that did it rather than the whole group that those particular people claim that they were from.
Libya's deposed leader, Muammar Gaddafi, vows to continue fighting what he calls foreign influence. He remained in hiding as his loyalists attacked an important Libyan oil refinery. Officials say the attack on the refinery was a response to reports that the rebels' ruling council plans to restart oil production. Oil generates most of the country's income. Gaddafi released a recorded message Monday calling his Libyan adversaries traitors and vowing to never hand Libya over to what he terms colonialism.
French officials are reassuring people that no radioactive materials have leaked from a nuclear waste site where a furnace exploded Monday. Officials say they do not know what caused the blast in the facility where radioactive waste is processed. One worker was killed and 4 others were hurt. Emergency officials said no traces of radioactivity were found on any of the people involved.
A leaking gas line pipeline explosion in Kenya has killed at least 60 people. The provincial commissioner says the death toll will rise. More than 100 people were injured. The Red Cross conducted search and rescue operations. Hospital beds were crowded together while doctors and nurses rushed from one victim to another. Kenya's prime minister says there will be a proper investigation.
The average price of a gallon of regular gasoline hit its highest price since June. It rose slightly to nearly $3.97. This was the 23rd increase in 24 days. According to the AAA and the Oil Price Information Service, the average price now is over 97 cents above what it was at this time last year.
President Obama spoke from the Rose Garden Monday to push his $447 billion jobs creation plan. Obama's American Jobs Act consists of tax cuts and spending on infrastructure and job training.
This is a bill that will put people back to work all across the country. This is the bill that will help our economy in a moment of national crisis. This is a bill that is based on ideas from both Democrats and Republicans. And this is the bill that Congress needs to pass.
Obama says the only thing stopping his jobs bill is politics.
Bank of America estimates it will cut 30,000 jobs over the next few years. The cuts will lead to a 10% reduction in the bank's workforce. The plan is to reshape and shrink the nation's largest bank to deal with the housing bust. The bank's stock has lost half its value due to poorly written mortgages. Many came from B of A's acquisition of the troubled Countrywide Financial Corporation. The bank hopes to save $5 billion in annual costs through 2014.
Borders is closing its original bookstore in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The site had operated for 40 years. Borders has declared bankruptcy and has been steadily closing nearly 400 of its stores. Borders reward customers have been receiving emails about sales aimed at liquidating the company's huge stock of books.
Los Angeles has been known as the homeless capital of the U.S. For one woman, homelessness was not the end of the road. In a way, it was a new beginning. Sonia Martinez reports.
This is Jessica Rojas, a hardworking woman who is passionate about 3 things in life: her family, helping those less fortunate, and cooking.
I just love to cook and, like to do what I do best.
Rojas has been working here at the San Fernando Valley Rescue Mission for the past 2 years as the head chef. But Rojas, who works very hard now, recalls when just a few years ago she was also homeless and jobless in the streets of LA. Rojas lives in a nice apartment now, with a balcony that has an amazing view and a spacious living room. But there is one aspect of homelessness she will never forget.
Seeing my kids cry, you know, feeling very cold, you know, and thinking that they have a place to live.
Even though Rojas is no longer homeless, she says she still relates to them.
I've been there before, you know, and being in the streets most of all, you know, I mean, I relate to that, you know what I mean? For me being homeless and me helping the homeless people, you know, it's just a great, you know, experience, and you know, you feel what they feel because, you know, you've been through what they've been through, you know. Her positive attitude has made her what she is now, a successful woman full of joy. I'm happy, I'm very happy, you know, I'm happy that God made me who I am, you know, and I thank Him for that, and I know that I went through all this stuff for a purpose, you know, and there's more things to come in life that I have to experience. Rojas says for now she will continue doing what she knows best, to cook for those in need, but she has also set a goal in mind. When I have money that I want to open up an organization and help the less fortunate, you know, like I was in that same situation, you know what I mean, and I want to help them. For Jessica, getting off the streets was a real battle, but life has offered her what she calls a second chance. With that in mind, she hopes to someday make a difference in the life of others who are jobless and homeless like she was once. In Northridge, Sonia Martinez reporting for Valley View News.
A Los Angeles school police officer has been convicted of faking his own shooting. 31-year-old Jeffrey Stenruse told authorities in January a man shot him outside the El Camino Real High School campus. Stenruse later admitted he accidentally shot himself. The hoax prompted a 10-hour police standoff and locked down 9 San Fernando Valley schools. Stenruse was convicted of 5 felonies related to the shooting and will be sentenced in December.
California is set to send thousands of women-prison inmates home as early as next week. The decision comes after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the state must cut its prison population by over 30,000. The deadline is June 2013. Those eligible for early release must be mothers, have been convicted of non-serious crimes, and have less than 2 years left on their sentences. A corrections spokeswoman says if the plan is successful, then male inmates may be released early as well.
It's official, football is back. Coming up in sports, Myra Castaneda will highlight the NFL's opening weekend blowouts, upsets, and game-winning drives.